Hello, everyone, and welcome to December's episode of Miracle Conversations. I am Brittany New, and I am based in California right now. I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning, who's all the way over in Florida, and we get together every single month and we talk about miracle mindsets. This month is no exception to that, and we are in a new theme, which is in anticipation of next year. And the theme for this coming year, is vision. So we've done lots of different things in the themes in the past. We've done forgiveness, love, miracles last year. And what we talk about pulls from a book called A Course in Miracles. And in this book, it has tons of lessons, and every episode we focus on a different lesson, and Dave sheds his insights on that lesson because he is an expert in miracle mindsets. He's got his Ph.D., and he's written this amazing book called Nightmares to Miracles, which dives deep into it as well. So, Dave, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your work and what we're going to talk about today?
Fantastic. Brittany, good to be with you again. Thank you for that wonderful, warm introduction. So, as you mentioned, I live in Florida. I'm on what's called the Treasure Coast, and that's because there are a lot of Spanish galleons in the 1800s that were shipwrecked here.
Oh,
And people
wow.
are actually search for treasure from
Oh,
those
wow.
different galleons. So, the Treasure Coast,
Wow.
which is Vero Beach, Fort Pierce. That's the part where I live, and I'm most familiar with. But it's a little further north and south than that, and all part of South Florida too. So yeah, I love Florida. It's very tropical, as most people would imagine. And as you mentioned, I am an executive coach specializing in miracle mindset. Right. So miracles are defined in my way of thinking as solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve. Solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve. And so, with my client base, we're usually working with CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs who are building things in the world, and could be from a mom and pop uh, all the way to a multi-billion-dollar organization and everything that goes into that, and things that seem impossible to solve on the professional level, or overcoming legal issues, uh, overcoming serious conflict within the senior leadership team, uh, motivating the cascades of leadership underneath the senior leadership team. For the individual leaders, enormous amounts of stress, issues related to life work balance, purpose, meaning. There's just a ton of different things for the leaders. And then on the personal side, for my clients, there's relationships, romantic, platonic, circles of love, their families, their kids, spouses, just significant others. There's a lot of different things going on. I'm chuckling because, um, it's just really rewarding work to be trusted by clients to support them with the myriad of things that they're faced with. So, Miracle Mindset is about tackling any and all the problems using these things that we talk about at a very high level and in a very general way on these calls, um, as an adjunct to putting out resources to support our audience around developing miracle mindset and then making the applications to these things that can seem really, really painful and difficult to navigate. A big source of this is also my own personal struggles with crises in my life. Typically think of four buckets: health, wealth, love, and enlightenment. And I've had serious crises in all four of these. And miracle mindset um, has helped me in each of them. And I always say jokingly, but somewhat seriously, that without this stuff, I'm as dumb as a doorknob, in spite of much learning in so many different directions. It's still unfathomable, so much of the stuff that happens when there's an actual crisis. And the principles that we've studied and are studying have helped me enormously. So that's a little bit of background. Let's see. We're as you mentioned, we've done a lot of different themes, and we're in the theme of vision for 2024. We always start in November and December of the previous year. So in 2023 now, we've done 2 months on this theme after today, and then we'll go full force starting in January, and then in November of 2024 we'll have a new theme. And we've done a lot of themes. I'm almost embarrassed to say we did this theme, vision, in 2018. And I'm embarrassed to say, but I get a chuckle out of it at the same time. I can't remember a single thing that we talked about for the whole year that we were on this theme. I really can't. I mean, I had a group, we were on calls, we were doing it. And now I didn't have your help, Brittany, at the time. We weren't doing this yet. So that might have something to do with it. But so in that call, I mean, the group calls are great, but once we finish with them, they evaporate. We don't record them, we don't do anything with them. So we're now in our 4th year of recording uh, what we do. And these calls of ours on our show, Brittany, they fall halfway between the first group I run and then the second group I run. It's all on the same theme. So I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we're teaching this to an actual audience and recording. Um, that things I'm retaining things more, and course says that there's an enormous resistance within us to absorbing the things it has to share, right? So basically, what I think it means there is that the things come in and they just fly out because the ego mindset is so strong, it doesn't really want these things to settle in. And so that's what I think the real reason is. But it's the funniest thing that we spend a whole year, and I can't. Now, this year I can remember a lot. So already, I mean, in the little bit that we've done. So vision, bottom line, vision really refers to God's vision of things, right? That's the simplest definition of vision. It's the way God sees things. And what that then further means is that it contains absolute perfection and infinite abundance of everything good. And that, as we'll see in today's lesson, is God's gift to us. God is giving that all of that to us if we'll receive it. So that's vision, and it's not what we see with our physical eyes. Of course, it's very clear on that. It's actually very different from what we see with our physical eyes. Anyway, so we're going to get into that, and then I like to carry a lesson with me, a personal lesson with me through the year. I use lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. And that's just an automatic touchstone for me about everything. Anytime I have a glitch, a problem, an issue, something I'm confounded by, I start meditating on that, and it just dissolves the issue or the problem. I see solutions, I see possibilities. God is the strength in which I trust. So I carried that all of this past year, and I'm going to carry it again as another sort of supporting lesson. I've got quite a few of these sort of on my hit parade, but it takes too much time to keep talking about all of them. They come up as necessary. So with all of that said, I want to highlight before we get into the material for today proper, I want to highlight another miracle that we've had internal to our show, which is the miracle of our work together, Brittany. I'd like to talk about this. Ever since I stumbled on it some months ago, I really like to talk about it as a centerpiece of our work together on every call, right? So a little bit of the history of how we connected initially, what we've done, and how profound it's been. So, and then support you to give a shout out about where people can find you. So we started with worksheets. I discovered you, and I was like nervously like, okay, I need some work, and probably anybody can do better than I've done. My stuff is so shabby and shaky that I share with clients as part of my teaching modules and stuff. And the stuff that came back from me the first time was like, oh my goodness, it was amazing. It was like a huge quantum leap above and beyond what I was doing. So then we enjoyed that for a while. You helped me with all my sheets. Then phase two, I tentatively approached you and I said, I've got this rough audio for my online course. is there any way you can help me make those into actual modules for the online course? And you're like, sure thing. And then pop, 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 you knocked it all out. I was really amazed again, took my thinking about this to a whole nother level. Those modules became the rough material, the raw material for my book, Nightmares to Miracles, same name as the course. And really, really impressed with that and what you did for me there. And then as I was thinking about this podcast and getting it off the ground and getting going uh, a little over 3 years now, a little light bulb went off and said, "Oh, check out whether Brittany can help you." It's like she's the helper in chief. Like, okay, let's check Brittany out and see. I'm doing this podcast, and I don't know. I'm all over the place. Like, but my main concern is whether you could be like a sidekick on the show and interview me, because I dread the thought of just blabbing for whatever amount of time on the thing. It's like, no, it'd be much more interesting if we had some human engagement. And you're like, yeah, okay. I mean, I think I could do that. I'm not an expert in the course, and it's not my path, but I can ask you questions about it. So that was off and running, and then at the same time, uh, you helped me understand that you could edit our raw video, and you would be able to um, repurpose it into a video blog, an audio blog, and a written blog. All as part of the podcast and post everything for me. I was like, wow, okay, that's unbelievable. So these are all miracles of ascension in the quality of work and the efficiency of the work, you doing what you are good at and excel at, among many other things, and me not trying to do what I'm not good at and don't excel at all. So here we are, about to go into our 4th year. The look of everything, the quality of everything, that's all Brittany. So anything you want to say by way of a shout out to your audience about where they can find you, our miracle? And I always like to say that this is all facilitated through the miracle of technology too. We've never met in person for inquiring minds. And it's just so interesting that we've gotten so much done in this particular way. I love it. Over to you, Brittany.
Yeah, it really is a miracle. I love working with you and I love doing this every month. It's so positive, it's so uplifting. And yeah, technology is incredible. The fact that we've met consistently every month. Is this going on our 4th year?
Into the 4th year. We're
Into
just
the
2 months
fourth year.
into our fourth
Wow. So
cycle.
yeah,
Yep.
that's pretty this is yeah, my most consistent type of work client relationship, I'd say. So this is really cool. Like we talk every single month. That's more than me and some of my best friends, and considering we're doing this podcast together.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, if anyone watching is interested in finding out more about what I do, thanks Dave for the shout out. I've got a website which is brittanynew.com. I also have a YouTube channel. You can just search Brittany New in the YouTube search bar. My videos should come up. I've got some tutorials on how to do things with media for small businesses and entrepreneurs and branding. So yeah, if you're interested in branding or any type of digital product creation, that's up my alley. So you can contact me there. Thanks again, Dave, for that shout out.
You're completely welcome, and thank you for each of the steps of this journey and for having just added so much value to this process. It wouldn't be where it is now without you. And but partly what I mean by that is that we've got a great audience. We're still in humble beginnings, so it's a small group, a small cohort, but it's a faithful audience. I hear back all the time from those who react to what we're doing and react favorably. And part of what we're doing is we're putting out, if you want to call it this, a vibration into the world that is intended to be miraculous. So it changes the most painful things in the world. It contributes to changing the most painful things in the world for individuals and groups around the world, from nightmares to miracles. Our job is to put the vibration out. God does the heavy lifting with it, or higher power, or Allah, or Buddha, or whatever your sense of higher power is. So where I'm going with this is that, again, probably not, we won't talk about it in too much detail right now, but we're beginning to get more traction with um, a certain kind of audience too. People finding us, looking for us, wanting to uh, participate, benefit from help. So again, we have our internal miracle, and then we're beginning to have more of a miracle process with our audience too. And by miracle, I mean abundant, bountiful, positive steps in our ability to help more people with having a more intense signal that we put out, if you will. All right, fantastic. Thanks, Brittany, and thanks to our audience. So we're going to go to the lesson, and let's lesson 42, and it says, "God is my strength, vision is His gift." God is my strength, vision is His gift, and um, so God is my strength. So God is the strength in which I trust. It just coincidentally, in a way, that's lesson 47, as I mentioned earlier. I'm walking with that lesson through the year. This specific lesson is highlighting that God is my strength. That's the first part of the lesson. Then the second part is vision is His gift. Right now, uh, sometimes we go deeper than I will today, but we just want to inform our audience that we're aware of gender neutral language, and so the course is written in a with male pronouns, and we try to change that when we can, or just at least right now, as I'm doing, admit that uh, it might be alienating to some, but we're aware of it and we're mindful of that, and we still want to include everyone as much as possible. So, so the first paragraph of this lesson goes like this. The idea for today combines two very powerful thoughts, both of major importance. It also sets forth a cause and effect relationship that explains why you cannot fail in your efforts to achieve the goal of the course. You will see because it is the will of God. It is His strength, not your own, that gives you power, and it is His gift rather than your own that offers vision to you. So, this is a very encouraging section here, right? Because we're being told right away that the course is something that we will be successful with for those of us who study it. Now, that's very meaningful to those of us who study the course because it is a very massive curriculum in miracles. It's called A Course in Miracles. And as Brittany, you mentioned before, it's 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. And then there's about another 1,000+ pages of theory, right? So it's very dense, it's very rich, and it takes years to really get in the swing of things with the curriculum, right? But um, the teacher here, quick sidebar, Jesus, the teacher of the course, Jesus is saying, we will be successful with this course as we pursue it. And there are two main reasons. The reason is because of God's strength, and the other is because the purpose of the course is to help us see without impediments, and that this is a gift that God is giving us, right? So, very, very, very powerful and encouraging. Very simple, right? Now, in paragraph 2, just one thing I want to highlight there. Um, maybe a couple of things. It says we can receive God's gifts to us, this strength and this deepening into vision. We can receive these gifts anytime, anywhere, wherever we are, and in whatever circumstance we find ourselves. Right? So that's another huge blessing about all this. It's not just a platitude, right? It's like, okay, it doesn't matter what circumstance you're in, there is divine help, palpable, powerful strength from the divine to help us get out of the nightmare, to wake up from the nightmare into the miracle. And then it says, your passage through time and space is not at random. You cannot but be in the right place at the right time, right? And this is contingent on the commitment to unseparating, right? Because then there's that part of us that really sees that there's so much purpose to how we're living. If our minds are separated and we're not doing anything about that, then unfortunately, it really does feel like we're in a crazy nightmare more often than not. The rest of this is going to be about practice. The rest of the lesson, I should say, is going to be about practice. And most of the practice that's being encouraged here boils down to the following, right? Just kind of a free, meditative uh, reflection on what's going on in one's mind for 3 to 5 minutes uh, twice in the day. So 2 3 to 5 minute practice periods as soon as possible after waking and just before going to bed. Um, and that in these practices, we're just letting things come up that are reinforcing of these two ideas, right? That God is our strength and that vision is God's gift. And so it says here, you might think, for example, and allow additional thoughts like vision must be possible. God gives truly. God's gifts to me must be mine because he gave them to me. Or, other additional things. I cannot be deceived by this. It's not untrue. It's reliable. I can depend on these promises. Those would be a few additional things that we could uh, ponder and just letting them come up. And the whole point is not to force anything, not to push for anything in particular. And if we're finding that it's hard, just relax a little bit and then get back into this groove of letting things come up. And it says something very interesting. This is the last thing I'll say, Brittany. I'm going to check with you to see if you have any thoughts. And this is really it for today. I mean, we might do some application. You're always really good with application. But before we get there, it says that this is lesson 42. It says at this point, to us, the students, the teacher is saying you might be really surprised by how much of the course you've absorbed and how much you know, right? And so you can begin to recognize all kinds of different things. Like where the other day I was reflecting on when I took the GRE, which is the graduate school equivalent of the SAT to get into competitive PhD programs. I remember I took that thing and I was so depressed afterwards. I was like, man, I bombed that test. I totally bombed it. I mean, I was inconsolable for like a week. I was massacred in that thing.
Oh
And
no.
I was just on pins and needles. And then my results finally came. And it's sort of like SATs. You can do 800s, I think. And I was middle 600s in all of them. And I was completely surprised because I thought if I got 200s, I'd be fortunate, like on the lower end if I just didn't flunk out completely. And I
Wow.
mean, in other words, I excelled at each of the sections, the three sections.
Mm.
And for a long time, I didn't believe that they were my results. I think somebody mixed up my results with somebody else's. But anyway, it got me into the PhD program of my choice. And the
Mhm.
point I'm making here is that it was just a projection. The other day, I was saying to somebody, I was just projecting my inner insecurity and chaos at the time into the exam. And I was just seeing all kinds of phantasms of horror, and this is a strong course principle, right? That we make stuff up. Uh, we're in a state of a nightmare and we put it into the environment. So that's one course principle. But the point is that as we're doing this exercise, a lot of things will come to us. All right. So, any reactions, any thoughts, any comments, questions, and any application?
Yeah, this lesson reminds me of a YouTube video I watched recently. It was a podcast, one of those where a really humble kind of young guy is interviewing this expert. And so the expert was an expert in neuroplasticity, and he was talking about working with high performance individuals across various fields and how they use meditation to hone their craft. And then he also had worked with more average individuals who would use meditation to become good at something just through meditation. So the example that he gave was like he had a group of people that had been practicing piano, and then another group who had been imagining practicing piano and meditating on that and visualizing the chords and things like that, and how they both kind of excelled at a similar rate, which is really amazing. But he talked about how in a lot of his studies, he would hear back feedback from the people how they had to keep going back and remeditating because a core component of this was that you have to believe that what you're doing is effective. And if you stop believing it, it kind of cancels itself out. So that reminds me of this line where it says, "There's no limit to the number of short practice periods that would be beneficial today." The idea is to continue bringing these thoughts together. So I feel like repetition can be key when it comes to this meditation. And not to say that it's worthless if you aren't doing it right or something like that. It's all helpful, but you really want to humble yourself to revisit something if you're just going through the motions. And it can be tempting to just kind of do it like, yeah, I've got to do my morning, I've got to do my night, and you're not really feeling it. But if you find yourself in that position, if that's how you feel doing this exercise, then I'd encourage you to try it again in the middle of the day and really try to make sure that you're believing what you're visualizing. And that's kind of the power of vision, is like, it's not just about seeing it, it's about believing it and feeling it. And that's how you really bring in the magic. So I thought that was something to add to this.
Very, very powerful. Very powerful. It's actually a coaching best practice.
Mm-hmm.
From where I sit as the coach
Mm-hmm.
with the client, the executive coach with the client, is to say what you just said
Mm-hmm.
often, over and over and over again through the history of our work together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Presumably, given that the client, and I'm not talking trash about any of my clients ever. I love them, I respect them, I value them highly, I esteem them, I'm proud of them, the things that they do. But with what we call the mind training, the
Mm-hmm.
consistent return to these concepts, these
Mm-hmm.
principles, these practices, it can just fly out. Like I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
studied uh, vision for a whole year doing this process. And when it came back 5 years later to look at it again, I was reviewing. I mean, I have the notes, but internally, I couldn't remember a single thing. It was in there on some level, liminal level, but it wasn't anchored consciously. And so, yeah, what you just said is golden. I mean, the idea that to encourage clients to practice constantly through the day,
Mm-hmm.
reaching for some kind of inner spark, inner authentic connection,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just it's golden what you just shared. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and clients, they come to, if it's done in the right way, if it's done in kind of the voice. This is the other thing I was thinking as you were speaking. I didn't have this in my notes, but it popped into my mind. It's the other thing is to be gentle and affirming and supportive as the coach, right? So, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
I borrow from this voice that we're listening to in this lesson, where it says, "Oh, you'll succeed. You're definitely going to succeed. Success is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
You are guaranteed success."
Mm-hmm.
No, but what if it doesn't work? And what if my company collapses? And what if the this and that? And the banks come after us? And, it's a composite of things that I'm putting together. It's no one person that can be identified. And it's like, well, you will be successful. You will have the miracles. The key is to practice the mindset so that you stay plugged in, because otherwise you'll go up and down. You'll feel good some of the time, then you'll feel horrible some other times, a lot of the other times. We want to stay in a state of um, uh, euphoria, optimism. Now, some people see that as a trap, and it can be a trap if we're being euphoric and optimistic and not paying attention. It can be a form of mental illness, I guess. So, assuming that we're tracking everything properly, um, then this other level of consistent optimism is something that we're being authorized to experience by the teacher, the master teacher. We will not fail. We're guaranteed success. Excellent. Well, good. Anything else? And this is a shorter lesson today, so um, we're moving to the final stages of our call, I think, for today. But Brittany, anything else you want to remark on or say to our audience?
Yeah, another thought that came to mind is in the headline of the lesson, it says that vision is his gift. And I think it could be said that it's his gift to humanity, because I was listening to another coach talk about how, well, as far as we know, I guess we don't have empirical evidence, but I don't think any other mammals or animals necessarily have the ability to see beyond what's blatantly in front of them. So I think it's very cool that as humans, that's something that we can do. And it actually doesn't make any logical sense why we would have that gift. Like if we didn't know about the gift of vision, it would be very difficult to explain it to someone. Actually reminds me of this movie, The Invention of Lying. Have you ever seen that movie?
No,
I feel like
I
I
should
might
check
have
it out.
mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what lying is. It's a comedy, and so one person thinks about lying and he tells someone like I said something that wasn't, and they just can't fathom it. So I think vision is like I saw something that wasn't. And if you have never if we didn't have this gift, we really wouldn't be able to see anything besides like what's really happening in front of us, responding to the actual stimuli. And that's how we kind of know as humans that this miracle mindset work is possible, because otherwise, why would we have dreams? Why would we be able to see these different possibilities? So I think that's kind of an interesting concept that, yeah.
Well, it is. And again, it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me that you bring this up for so many different reasons, one of which I'll highlight now. Others might come up later. So, um, there are different podcasts, since you're talking about some of
Mm-hmm.
these different programs and stuff, different podcasts I listen to where the podcasts are good. And at some point, I'll come up with a list of things that I think are can be useful to our audience. But and they don't necessarily have to do with A Course in Miracles. They're more sort of in the billionaire mode and things like that. But people interviewing billionaires and things like that, which is a kind of a target audience of this whole process that we're doing. Um, one of them anyway, and they'll go down some deep philosophical, what I think are rabbit holes about consciousness and the nature of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
and what is consciousness and how do we know that we're conscious and how do we know that we're thinking and how do we know that what we're thinking is real
Mm-hmm.
versus illusory
Mm-hmm.
and a dream like a what's an illusion in a dream state versus what's real in terms of the empirical world. It goes on and on quite a bit, and a lot of this is then related to AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Artificial intelligence and um, all the thinking about how to develop machines that have authentic, that are authentic generative AI or, special AI. They just do a machine that just does a task. And so all these different things. And they're all very interesting. And I'm not a Luddite in the sense that I'm not anti-intellectual about it. It's like, oh, I don't really care and stuff like that. But um, I find it endlessly interesting because there are certain things that you can get down a real rabbit hole about with all of this stuff. And I'm not saying that about you at all and what you just said. You just raised the topic and gives us a chance to talk about it. I think that this A Course in Miracles for me always pulls me back because it's like a user's manual.
Mm-hmm.
It says you come with factory settings based on the structure of the human psyche, the ego, the subconscious, the divine. If you if you turn this computer on and use it in a specific way, this is what's going to happen. And in some ways, it's very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not interested in all the other questions about how do we know if we're really conscious and are other
Mm-hmm.
things conscious or
Mm-hmm.
um, so that can be from certain other perspectives. I mean, people are very smart and very sophisticated with these questions about how do I know what consciousness is? How do I know what I'm thinking is real? How do we know when the robots become real or if they're not real? The Turing test, all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, let's get back to basics. I have an illusory part of my mind and I have a real part of my mind, and I'm just being trained to choose the real part of my mind. Um, and it'll be interesting as we continue to evolve and have a wider audience, how to keep having that conversation without seeming limited and primitive.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, what I'm curious about, because in some ways, some people are really well versed in the philosophy of it and the history of the philosophy of it. And you can admire them and say, wow, they really they have good chops talking about all of that. But in some ways, I'm like, okay, when you're suffering, from an illness or something else, how do you get out of it? Anyway, I could go on and on, but,
Mm-hmm.
but this is just riffing off of what you shared.
Mm-hmm.
As I said before, when um, as I totally negated the fact that we were winding down a little bit. Good topic though.
Yeah, we
May,
have to be practical, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
maybe part of what we do is, I'm just thinking out loud here, is continue to have parts of our discussion that touch on this stuff.
Hmm.
What is consciousness? What is the mind? What is truth? What is real
Hmm.
thinking? Can robots achieve it? Can AI achieve it? I mean, it's such a big topic these days
Yeah.
everywhere. It might be interesting to keep that going side by side with, here's the operator's manual for what you've got. And the more you use it, the more powerful and miracle minded your life will be. Okay, back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, riffing off of that, I feel like the psychological definition of consciousness, some would go back to the quote by Rene Descartes, I think, therefore I am. And now with AI, it's like they think, therefore are they? Like I wonder. I don't want to think about all that. But yeah, we have no evidence that suggests we are not simply further developed versions of the same similar technology. I don't know. We could be AI ourselves.
Well, this is it. There's a part of us that's AI, and there's a
Hmm.
part of us that the part that's AI, in other words, illusory in my mind
Hmm.
right now,
Hmm.
wants to replicate
Hmm.
in
Right.
our own image,
Hmm.
like what God has done with us. And it's a
Yes.
very tricky, slippery slope. But I think if we have a little section on this, if it continues to gain traction, we might become more well versed, more articulate
Hmm.
about how we talk about it, all in relation to our main focus, which is of course
Hmm.
the miracles. So thanks for what you brought up, because it opens up that whole vista, and I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
there's so much that can be explored there.
Hmm.
That could be an
Yeah.
interesting feature.
Yeah, well, I think that wraps up today's lesson. Like you said, we usually like to end with a practical exercise. So this lesson, Dave literally just read off the practical exercise from A Course in Miracles directly, which is to meditate at the beginning and the end of your day. I added in to throw in an additional meditation midday if the earlier and later ones you're not at your full focused, energetic potential potentially. So yeah, good luck with doing that exercise if you feel compelled to. I'll do that. I actually already do kind of something like that. I do a bit of visualization in the beginning of end of every day, but I'll try to read through this lesson again and see what more I could integrate into my practice. So thanks, Dave, for sharing that with us.
You're
And
welcome.
do you have anything else to add for today?
Well, just gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude that as we follow the calendar itself, we're in
Mm-hmm.
December 2023. We're a little under a week from Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then 2 weeks from the New Year. So it's just gratitude for the holidays
Mm-hmm.
and how different people in different cultures celebrate the holidays, and wishing everybody a peaceful and um, joyful holiday season and a happy new year. The next time we're together will be in the new year. So I'm wishing you
Yes.
a prosperous holiday season, Brittany, and a happy new year as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Likewise to you and your
Thank you.
family.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, see you next time. See you
Yeah.
next year.
See you
Bye.
next year, Brittany, and our audience too. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.